Once upon a time, it was a countess, called the Blood Countess, or Countess Dracula. Curious mind, hello again with the female serial killer in the history, Elizabeth Bathory. If you're ready to dive deep into the captivating world of crime, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our community of curious minds. Together, we'll uncover the mysteries, challenge the norms, and ultimately seek a deeper understanding of the human condition. Thank you once again for being here. Get ready for an unforgettable adventure. Let's begin. The Blood Countess, or Countess Dracula, is the name of Hungarian noblewoman and alleged serial killer who was accused of killing at least 650 young women from 1590 to 1610. She was also accused of cannibalism and bathing in the blood of her victims. The stories about Bathory quickly became part of national folklore. In Kingdom of Hungary, Slovakia now, legends describing her vampiric tendencies, such as the tale that she bathed in the blood of virgins to retain her youth, were generally recorded years after her death and are considered unreliable. Some insist she inspired Bram Stoker's Dracula, 1897, although Stoker's notes on the novel provided no direct evidence to support this hypothesis. Nicknames and literary epithets attributed to her include the Blood Countess and Countess Dracula. The charges leveled against Bathory have been described by several historians as a witch hunt. Other writers, such as Michael Farron in 1989, have said that the accusations against Bathory were supported by testimony from more than 300 individuals, some of whom described physical evidence and the presence of mutilated dead, dying, and imprisoned girls found at the time of her arrest. In a 2018 article for Historical Science Review, Alexandra Bartosiewicz stated that when Bathory was persecuted, the accusations were a spectacle to destroy her family's influence in the region, which was considered a threat to the political interests of her neighbors, including the Habsburg Empire. Bathory was born in 1560 on a family estate in Nyírbátor, Royal Hungary. She spent her childhood at Exid Castle. Her father was Baron George V. Bathory of the Exid branch of the family, brother of Andrew Bonaventura Bathory, who had been voivode of Transylvania. Another was Baroness Anna Bathory, 1539-1570, daughter of Stephen Bathory of Somlyo, also voivode of Transylvania, who was of the Somlyo branch. Elizabeth was the niece of the Hungarian noble Stephen Bathory, 1533-1586, the King of Poland, the Grand Duke of Lithuania of the Polish, Lithuanian Commonwealth, and Prince of Transylvania. She had several siblings. As a child, Bathory had multiple seizures that may have been caused by epilepsy. At the time, symptoms relating to epilepsy were diagnosed as falling sickness, and treatments included rubbing blood of a non-sufferer on the lips of an epileptic or giving the epileptic a mix of a non-sufferer's blood and piece of skull as their episode ended. A proposal made by some sources in order to explain Bathory's cruelty later in her life is that she was trained by her family to be cruel. Bathory was raised a Calvinist Protestant. As a young woman, she learned Latin, German, Hungarian, and Greek. Born into a privileged family of nobility, Bathory was endowed with wealth In 1573, Bathory was engaged to Count Ferenc Nadasdy, a member of the Nadasdy family. It was a political arrangement within the circles of the aristocracy. Nadasdy was the son of Baron Tamas Nadasdy. On 8 May 1575, Bathory and Nadasdy were married at the Palace of Vrano, today Vranov nad Teplau, Slovakia. The marriage resulted in combined land ownership in both Transylvania and the Kingdom of Hungary. After the wedding, the couple lived in Nadasdy's castle at Sarvar. In 1578, 3 years into their marriage, Nadasdy became the chief commander of Hungarian troops, leading them to war against the Ottomans. Bathory managed business affairs and the family's multiple estates during the war. This role usually included responsibility for the Hungarian and Slovak people, providing medical care during the war. Ferenc Nadasdy died on 4 January 1604 at the age of 48. Although the exact nature of the illness which led to his death is unknown, it seems to have started in 1601 and initially caused debilitating pain in his legs. From that time, he never fully recovered, and in 1603 became permanently disabled. He had been married to Bathory for 29 years. Before dying, Nadasdy entrusted his heirs and widow to Georgi Thurzo, who would eventually lead the investigation into Bathory's crimes. Between 1602 and 1604, after rumors of Bathory's atrocities had spread throughout the kingdom, Lutheran minister Istvan Magyari made complaints against her, both publicly and at the court in Vienna. In 1610, Matthias I assigned Georgi Thurzo, the Palatine of Hungary, to investigate. Thurzo ordered 2 notaries, Andras Kerestri and Moses Kerestri and Moses Skiraki, to collect evidence in March 1610. By October 1610, they had collected 52 witness statements. By 1611, that number had risen to over 300. Bathory is said to have begun killing daughters of the lesser gentry, who were sent to her gynoeceum by their parents to learn courtly etiquette. The use of needles was also mentioned by the collaborators in court. There were many suspected forms of torture carried out by Bathory. Some witnesses named relatives who died while at the gynoeceum. Others reported having seen traces of torture on dead bodies, some of which were buried in graveyards and others in unmarked locations. On 13 December 1612, Nikolai Vyzerinsky confirmed the agreement with Thurzo about the imprisonment of Bathory and distribution of the estate. On New Year's Eve 1612, Thurzo went to Seje Castle and arrested Bathory along with 4 of her servants, who were accused of being her accomplices: Dorothea Semtets, Ilona Jo, Katerina Benica, and Jenos Ujvari. According to Thurzo's letter to his wife, his unannounced visit found 1 dead girl and another living prey girl in the castle. But there is no evidence that they asked her what had happened to her, although it is commonly believed that Bathory was caught in the act of torture. She was having dinner. Initially, Thurzo made the declaration to Bathory's guests and villagers that he had caught her red-handed. However, she was arrested and detained prior to the discovery or presentation of the victims. It seems most likely that the claim of Thurzo's discovering Bathory, covered in blood, has been the embellishment of fictionalized accounts. Most of the witnesses testified that they had heard the accusations from others, but did not see it themselves. The servants confessed under torture, which is not credible in contemporary proceedings. They were the king's witnesses, but they were executed. Ilona Jo and Dorothea Sentis had their fingers torn out with a pair of red-hot pincers and were then burned alive, due to his youth and the belief that he was less culpable. Janos Ujvari was executed by a much less painful method, beheading. Afterwards, his body was burned on the same pyre as Jo and Sentis. Another servant, Erzi Majarova, initially escaped capture, but was burned alive after being apprehended. Katerina Banika received a life sentence after evidence showed that she'd been abused by the other women. The accusations of murder were based on rumors. There is no document to prove that anyone in the area complained about the Countess. In this time period, if someone was harmed, or someone even stole a chicken, a letter of complaint was written. 2 trials were held in the wake of Bathory's arrest. The first was held on 2 January 1611, and the second on 7 January 161. The highest number of victims cited during the trial of Bathory's accomplices was 650, but this number comes from the claim by a servant girl named Susanna that Jack Zilvasi, Bathory's court official, had seen the figure in one of Bathory's private books. The book was never revealed, and Zilvasi never mentioned it in his testimony. On 25 January 1611, Thurzo wrote a letter to King Matthias, describing that they had captured and confined Bathory to her castle. The Palatine also coordinated the steps of the investigation with the political struggle with the Prince of Transylvania. She was detained in the castle of Szeged for the remainder of her life, where she died at the age of 54. As Georgi Thurzo wrote, Elizabeth Bathory was locked in a bricked room, but according to other sources, written documents from the visit of priests, July 1614, she was able to move freely and unhindered in the castle, more akin to house arrest. She wrote a will in September 1610, in which she left all current and future inheritance possession to her children. In the last month of 1614, she signed her arrangement, in which she distributed the estates, lands, and possessions among her children. On the evening of 20 August 1614, Bathory complained to her bodyguard that her hands were cold, whereupon he replied, "It's nothing, mistress. Just go lie down." She went to sleep and was found dead the following morning. She was buried in the church of Szeged on 25 November 1614. But according to some sources, due to the villagers' uproar over having the Countess buried in their cemetery, her body was moved to her birth home at Exet, where it was interred at the Bathory family crypt. The location of her body today is unknown, but believed to be buried deep in the church area of the castle. The Szeged Church and the Castle of Szeged do not bear any markings of her possible grave. Several authors, such as Laszlo Nagy and Dr. Irma Sadecki Countess, have argued that Elizabeth Bathory was a victim of a conspiracy. Nagy argued that the proceedings against Bathory were largely politically motivated, possibly due to her extensive wealth and ownership of large areas of land in Hungary, which increased after the death of her husband. The theory is consistent with Hungarian history at that time, which included religious and political conflicts, especially relating to the wars with the Ottoman Empire, the spread of Protestantism, and the extension of Habsburg power over Hungary. Moreover, Matthias owed a large debt to Bathory, which was cancelled after she was arrested. The case of Elizabeth Bathory inspired numerous stories during the 18th and 19th centuries. The most common motif of these works was that of the Countess bathing in her virgin victim's blood to retain beauty or youth. This legend appeared in print for the first time in 1729 in the Jesuit scholar Laszlo Taroxi's Tragica Historia, the first written account of the Bathory case. The story came into question in 1817 when the witness accounts, which had surfaced in 1765, were published for the first time. They included no references to bloodbaths. In his book Hungary and Transylvania, published in 1850, John Paget describes the supposed origins of Bathory's bloodbathing, although his tale seems to be a fictionalized recitation of oral history from the area. It is difficult to know how accurate his account of events is. Sadistic pleasure is considered a far more plausible motive for Bathory's crimes. There are counterarguments made against this theory. The investigation into Bathory's crimes was sparked by complaints from a Lutheran minister, István Magyari. This does not contribute to the notion of a Catholic Habsburg plot against the Protestant Bathory, although religious tension is still a possible source of conflict, as Bathory was raised Calvinist, not Lutheran. To support Bathory's innocence, the testimony of around 300 witnesses citation needed, and the physical evidence collected by the investigators have to be addressed or disputed. That evidence included numerous bodies and dead and dying girls found when the castle was entered by Thurzo. Zadecki. Countess argues that the physical evidence was exaggerated, and Thurzo misrepresented dead and wounded patients as victims of Bathory, as disgracing her would greatly benefit his political state ambitions. Bathory has been labeled by Guinness World Records as the most prolific female murderer, though the number of her victims is debated.